And welcome to another edition
Yes.
of Gray Matter. What's going on, my co-host, partner in crime, Mr. Robert Lee Davis? How are you today, Rob?
I'm good. I'm cold.
Yeah, what's shaking in Brooklyn? How cold is it in Brooklyn?
It's been like 20s.
Okay, well that's come on, it's winter, but I
It
get
is.
you
Yeah,
know,
it
but
is. I don't like it, but it's a thing.
it's a thing. But then we have Texas, right? And like we have where it's
Yeah.
20 or even colder and they don't have any power or up to 3 million
Yeah.
people did not have power as of this morning. I believe some have come back online, but for quite a few days there's been a lot of deaths
Mm-hmm.
because of this, because people are doing desperate things like sitting in their cars, in their driveways or the garages, and keeping
Trying to stay
themselves
warm.
trying to stay warm. And just as a warning for anybody out there, just because your garage door is open does not mean you can have. It's going to prevent carbon monoxide
Mm.
poisoning. It doesn't take much for something like that to happen. So we just want everybody out there to be careful. Of course, if
Yes,
you have
please.
power, if you don't have power, you're probably not paying attention to us right now anyway. So, um, but
That is correct. That is
it is,
correct.
unfortunately, but it's a great conversation because something that we were going to have as a topic at some point. I'm pretty sure we both had talked about in the past was our crumbling infrastructure here in the United States. Um,
Yes.
and this is a perfect example of that. Well, it's also an example of we just have the wrong infrastructure for climate change. Um, and
Mm.
it's interesting because there was this huge thing, Rob, where like of course you know Texas is unique for anybody who doesn't know this, and they probably do now because I think it's becoming common knowledge, or maybe I just assume it because I'm looking it up, right? Is that Texas?
Mm.
There's three different power grids in the United States, in the mainland United States. You have the Eastern power grid, the Western power grid, and then you have Texas. Because it sounds like a joke, right? But then you have Texas. Texas has basically been thumbing their nose on federal regulations of power grids for a very long time by only having their own power grid, and that sounds
Mhm.
all cool and independent until something like this happens. And
And the thing is, I saw people on TV earlier trying to figure out, everyone's trying to figure out which side is going to blame which side.
yeah,
Um, but that a large piece of it is A, they weren't prepared for this kind of weather because
no,
they don't get this kind of weather. But then the other side was saying, well, there were no incentives for people who own the grids to prepare for this kind of. Why would they? You know, why would they make it? What kind of kick? Now, I know it is a kickback, but I want to say a different word. Tax break or
right.
something would they get for doing all this work?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting because that's again the very me like attitude that you'll get is like, well, what's in it for me as the guy who owns this power grid to do this work? It's like, well, now you don't have to repair all this work first of all, and you've had a stable infrastructure for people to spend their money on, and this is also a potential reasoning is the lack of regulation, federal regulation they have over there because I'm sorry. Are you telling me that the power grid you have for the state of Texas, the second most populous state in our country, I believe, correct, right? Um,
Mm,
no, am I wrong? California and then Texas, I always thought. Maybe it's changed. I don't know what the demos are there. You think New York's ahead? No.
yeah, I'm gonna look it up while you talk.
Look
But
it
go
up
ahead.
while
But
I'm
make
talking,
your
okay?
princess point.
Is that like you you have to have you have to have accountability for being that much power. I mean, it's the same thing like, people were blaming Puerto Rico because they couldn't get their shit together after the hurricane. They were like, "Oh, it's the power company's fault." Yeah, it is the power company's fault to an extent, but
Mm-hmm.
also there has to be regulation put on the power company, and there's your incentive. The incentive is we don't get fines up the butt unless we do this properly,
But the problem is that we have, or I shouldn't say we have, but what has happened is the Republican Party, I feel, has very successfully led a campaign to make the word
Mhm.
regulation a bad word.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and
people push back on, we're getting rid of all these regulations. Well, there are some regulations that are good That's why they were put in place.
That's absolutely true. Um,
But they hear it as, people are putting all these regulations in.
is
Well,
that like
yeah, maybe there are some that do need to be in place though for everything to work properly in a way that's safe and effective for everyone involved.
It, that's exactly right. And again, it's this these are those big things that shouldn't really be privatized, right? Like power should be, pretty much run on a government level. And I know there's people like, oh, well, they wouldn't do it as well. And I can understand that you could take segmentize some of the power structure and have it privatized. But like the overall structure and regulation needs to be there. And there are there's overregulation. There's absolutely overregulation. And California is a great example of that, So you have the two opposite polar ends that have the most problem with power. So
Right.
it's a good argument for, hey, where are we inside the center on that? But and of course California's power problems are much different, and I can't speak towards those right now. But what I can speak towards is that
But you are correct. Texas was number two.
it was number two, right? And so yeah, when you have the second most populous state and you lose power because it gets chilly, and yeah, the oversimplification, but still, come on, people. I mean, it's like that shouldn't be the thing that takes it
You
down.
lose power because it gets chilly. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm from
Okay.
New England where like there's no
Yeah.
way the power grid goes down in this kind of weather because they're like, we got this. You know what I mean? Like we're
But this
prepared for
also
this.
was an extreme. It isn't, not that I feel any great desire to stand up for Texas,
Well,
but
this is I'm not. I mean, this is
it's
nothing against the
a
state.
storm, right?
Yeah.
It isn't chilly. That's the,
just a little, just a little nip. It's just a little
chilly
nip.
is not the right word.
Chilly's not the right word, but you should be building your power grid for extremes because it's the extremes in which you really need the power.
See, but doesn't that go to sort of the argument of, I hear you, but like people who live in, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like a weather pattern. People
Right.
who live in Idaho
Right.
probably don't have flood insurance.
Yeah, correct. Probably don't.
Well, should they? What if there's a once in a lifetime flood that comes
Well,
through
that's
Idaho?
that's insurance. I mean, like that's a different like animal. Like I wouldn't have expected anybody in Texas to have cold weather insurance. You know what I mean? Like their pipe.
But you expect the power grid companies, and I'm just saying that
Absolutely.
you expect them to be prepared for something that has not occurred in at least the entire time that most of these people have been alive.
Well, I think what you have to look at is the fact that right now, part of that is a little bit of a climate change denial is coming into play too, right? Like, and
Okay.
this is how we are. This is tends to be how we operate in this country anyway, right? It's like, well, we're not going to do something until it's too late, and then we should have done something, so now we'll do it. And it's kind of that methodology that people are going to have over time. Is like, well, we're not going to touch that until something goes wrong. I'm not going to go to the doctor and get myself checked
hear
out
that.
until something goes wrong, and then I'll do it, and then it's probably too late to get it prevented or whatever. But that's part of where it is. So the big question is, are they going to learn from this, or are they just like, well, that's never going to happen again? Because guess what, guys? It's going to happen again. It may not happen in the next year or two or whatever, but this is what it means to call it climate change and not global warming. Because I think that was, it shows you that, like, look, yes, the temperature of the Earth is rising incrementally here, right? But that
And
is
things are
causing,
getting cold.
but it causes shit to get cold. I mean, it can happen. It's not
Yeah.
like it, but
Yeah.
it also causes our summers to be incredibly warm. And so I think that's the thing people need to recognize is, this is not going to be the last of these polar vortexes to happen. As ice is melting in the Arctic, what do you think happens to that? What do you think is going to happen to like all of this stuff happening? We have these crazy craters that are showing up. Do you hear about this? The methane gas explosions up in like
Where?
Siberia, upper Asia, in the Arctic Circle. As the permafrost is starting to weaken, there are these deposits of like built up methane gas that has been built up under this permafrost, and once the pressure gets strong enough and the permafrost starts melting and it's not strong enough to hold it back, there's this massive explosion of ice, and what's left is a crater.
Where is this happening?
This is happening in the Arctic Circle, northern Russia especially, but in northern Asia, where you're basically hitting the Arctic Circle and up there. And so luckily we don't hear much about it because there's not a lot of people up there, but that's massive deposits of methane gas that's exploding. And it's, this is just one thing that's just like, you can look this stuff up and you'll see like a new bit of news that's terrible and crazy all at the same time. And so they're seeing these craters now. But like, this is all climate change. And that's why it's really important that people recognize it means climate change. So we're going to get floods, and you're going to get polar vortexes, and it seems that the cities that are not prepared for this are the cities that or the states that don't seem as prepared for this. The ones that lost a lot of power, they were southern states. These were Republican-run states for the most part, not counting Oregon, which is having power issues, and of course California, which is a big one. But these southern states are absolutely not prepared for the cold. My brother lives in Atlanta. I've mentioned this before. You get an inch of snow there, and the town shuts down. Basically, they can't hang with it.
So, is the answer to better educate the citizens around climate changes so that because here's the thing, this isn't anything that really the citizens can do. The citizens can't fix the power grid themselves.
No, the citizens can't do that, but the citizens can go F themselves, as far as the mayor of Colorado City, Texas was saying. Did you hear about that?
No.
You didn't hear about this crazy dude. He's no longer married.
Is this the person who was talking go.
I have it here. I got to pull up what this guy said. Where is it? I'm going to pull it up. His name is Mayor Tim Boyd. He did a Facebook post that was like this is not something a mayor's supposed to post. It was crazy. I'm trying to pull up some of the quotes of the things he said. He said Tim Boyd in his since deleted post was going. I'm reading this from USAtoday.com, by the way. Tim Boyd said he was going to quote unquote hurt some feelings and proceeded to chastise quote unquote lazy people quote unquote looking for a damn handout. He said no one owes you and your family anything, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. He said, only the strong will survive and the weak will, it looks like he spelt it perish, Parish, but I think he meant perish.
Okay.
But he's a very religious guy as well, so maybe he meant perish. I don't know. But yeah, he made that while millions were without power following a winter storm. And it's kind of like...
So he was saying to the residents of his town, it's not my job to help you?
Yeah, it's not my job to help you, and you're gonna stop looking for damn handouts. And I don't know what his post, whether he was replying to somebody who was literally like, "Give me money, Mayor." I don't know, but no matter what, dude, I mean, this is you just being a human being. It's a terrible thing to say.
What? Maybe that's his. It's not the exact same thing,
right?
But in a Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of way.
Oh.
The people there voted for her.
No. That's Georgia. This is Texas.
No. I just mean in the sense that.
Oh, they voted for him?
The people are just like him.
I
mean, you've got to know your constituents somewhat to basically tell them to go.
I mean, like
survive on your own.
Well, like I get the attitude. I'm not saying I stand to the dogma for Republicans of like individualism. I mean, I get individualism. I'm saying like we're like, hey, it's just I'm here to take care of myself. Government stay off my back, and the government shouldn't help anybody else. Okay. Like that's
doesn't make any sense. No one can say that.
No one can. Well, people can say that, but no, they don't know what they're saying.
Yes.
Because you can't tell me you love police and then say you don't want the government to help you out, or you want fire. Like that's the thing. Like that's almost like a fireman being like, "Hey, man, oh, your house is on fire. You don't get any handouts from us. You're on your own."
Right.
Like I just the idea of a mayor saying that, like I get that you're not here to give them handouts of whatever it is, but you're the mayor. You're supposed to listen to people's gripes instead of telling them to fuck off. I just
True. Although some people, I think they go into public service and I've witnessed this in my hometown, that people who go into public service and they hate the fact that people are questioning them and, it's so hard.
yeah.
I'm like, well, then don't go into an elected office.
don't go to elected office.
Like,
If you can't
just
be
that
here for
simple.
if you can't handle the criticism, if you can't handle the
Don't do
conversation,
it.
then you shouldn't be doing it. Right. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, you can say what you want. I mean, Ted Cruz gets criticized all the time, and that mofo still handles it. I'm not saying I like him. I'm not saying he deserves to be in public office, but at least he knows how to take it. Like,
He does take it. His wife as well.
I don't
understand
know.
their-
I don't get it, man.
I
But
understand that,
but yeah, if you can't handle somebody saying, "Hey, we need help in this town while we have no power," and like, how do you just like?
Now, I'm not a power grid knowledgeable person. As far as we were talking about rebuilding the infrastructure of the country, and there is so much that needs to be done, and fixing roads, and rebuilding schools. Like, there's a lot of things. A lot of our schools are so old. We're going to talk about schools later. For the power grid, what does that look? I wonder, from an employment stance of like putting people to work to improve it. I don't know what that looks like.
Well, I think that like first of all, part of the Green New Deal, people can decide they have an opinion about the Green New Deal without reading it all they want. But part of the Green New Deal is, hey, we have to rebuild our infrastructure with renewable energy jobs and change the way our infrastructure works. I just read today in prep for this conversation that like the average age of a dam in our country is over 56 years old. That's like the typical age of a dam. And
Wow.
dams, I mean, you want to you want to worry about flood damage or just destruction. I mean, imagine
Like,
a dam.
seriously.
Seriously, depending on the type of dam and what it is.
I mean, look at the bridges that were falling.
The bridges are in terrible condition. This is again like a cyclical thing. I mean, I think we need to recognize that we are around a century removed from the Great Depression, right? And we're around a century removed from
Yes, we are. And just as a quick side note, all those people who are like, "Oh, is this going to be our Roaring '20s?" And it's like, we're going to have the Roaring '20s again, right? And the Roaring '20s ended with the stock market crash.
Yeah,
So let's just keep
people
that in
don't.
mind.
Yeah, they're not getting that. I think we're looking at the Green Deal. I think was aptly named, honestly, but we do need a new deal. In this current time frame, and infrastructure was part of the New Deal. I mean, it's funny. It's a common joke with Jackie and I. We drive in the mountains. We love just going for a ride in the mountains from where we live. We're like 20 minutes and we're there in the foothills, and so we'll sometimes just get in the car and drive, and then we'll stop and get out, walk around, do whatever. But we just love getting out. And one of the things that it never fails, Jackie will say, about 20, 30 minutes into being in the mountains, is like, I can't imagine how they built these roads, because you are in this canyon and you're going along. Obviously, a lot of times the roads in the mountain passes are going to go along rivers because they already cut the ravine for you. But there's times when you're tunneling through and how you're building a level road and a highway, and it's like, and you look at it and you're like, wow. And when did we do this? We did this during the New Deal. And it was like this. It was FDR that put this together. And if the attitude today from Republicans was predominant during the FDR time, we wouldn't be having mountain pass roads right now. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like understand what government does accomplish and what it needs to accomplish for society. Infrastructure is one of the things that, I'm sorry, you can't leave this up to private enterprise. It doesn't make sense.
And the thing is, a lot of this was happening, and putting newly arrived immigrants to work.
Yes.
But since we're currently demonizing them,
Yeah.
we're pushing back a potential extra need in the workforce.
We are. But it's just as many jobs for any person in America to do, as a replacement job for coal mining. This might be a job for you. You know what I mean? Like for those jobs that are obsolete, that are those blue collar, hardworking American jobs that, we always talk about, that's a perfect position. Putting in solar panels and these are all jobs that, one can get trained fairly easily to like be able to
So
do.
what do you think is the holdup?
Well, I think there's a few things. The holdup is that we still have, a large portion of our political landscape, and it's politics. It's almost always politics that holds stuff like this up, right? The political landscape where there's been a denial of climate change, and there's a culture. The biggest culture problem I think that the Republicans have is they have an inability to admit fault in anything. Because if you could just admit you were wrong about a couple of things, we could find, like if you could just admit, there's some that have done it, right? But, the former guy, as Biden put it today, which I loved, I was like, he's calling him the former.
I know everybody, this is just my opinion. His name is not going to disappear.
No, it's not.
People not saying his name,
but it
doesn't make him not exist somehow.
No, it doesn't. And it's not like a Voldemort thing. It's not like I'd be afraid. It's almost like I feel like in his brain, he should get paid every time his name is mentioned. And I don't want to give the satisfaction in my end of it. It's like not using plastic water bottles.
That's giving him more power than he deserves. He can think that all he wants.
I get it. It's just, it's not the point of the conversation, honestly. So I don't want to go on. I'm going to try to go back to this. But the point really is that, where was I? See, I lost my point.
As far as making it happen, as far as actually getting people.
Oh, just admitting wrong. That was where I was saying. It was like if you could just admit some things that we all know you're wrong about and you're wrong. Like, and now climate change is one of those where it's like, come on. We all know it's documented. It's there that the oil and gas companies for years have been creating a disinformation campaign, and everybody who's ever said climate change is bullshit has been on the take somehow by special interest groups and lobbyists on that side. It's like it's where it's down to, right? And the governing body of all people in science who frigging know what the hell they're talking about and are independently studying this are saying this is all happening. All right. And
they promise too many industries, too many people. A, they've been so busy telling these people their jobs will never go away. That's one thing. But B, they also don't have a plan, or not enough people have a clear enough plan that makes sense to them.
Right.
For people who did work in these industries that are not going to exist anymore. So if you're in your 60s and you're close to retirement and you've worked even if you have a retirement plan and you've worked for this coal mine and now it's closing, but you're still able to work, like you're not looking to retire per se. What's the plan for that person?
I don't know. I mean, you're right. That's a very specific person, all right, that's close to retirement. And look, here's the thing. There's going to be some eggs broken no matter what, right? So what now you have to go, okay, how many eggs are being broken from the losses of jobs in coal mining? I think we're looking at like 50,000. It's not even a lot of people, by the way. It's really not a lot of people left working in coal mines in America.
Right.
All right. So it's not that much. I mean, it's, there's more servers in like a big city, like waiting tables, not saying that's a job they should do, than there are coal miners left. All right, so like everybody needs to put this into perspective, and I'm sorry for the coal miners, but honestly, aren't they tough guys that can fucking suck it up and do something else? You ever talk about how tough these guys are, but then everybody's like, what about they're the children? What about the children? No, I'm sorry.
They are, but I think a piece of the problem is and I know you don't mean it fully in this way.
I don't.
But I do believe a piece of the issue is it's a type of toxic masculinity. Most of them are men. Most of them are older. Most of them are perceived to be tough guys. They can handle it. What's the big deal? They'll find something else. But I'm making a massive sweeping statement here, and I try not to do that, except when I'm talking about Republicans. They are... If you've been working in a coal mine for 60 years or 40 years or whatever, this is what you know.
So look, again, like I think what we're looking at is there's not a lot of coal miners left, right? So this is easily fixable by most likely giving them a pension that we go, you know what, we're killing your industry. We're literally as a government going to kill your industry because it's obsolete and it needs to go. But we're not going to leave you out high and dry because there's not that many of you. We'll take care of you. You'll have a pension or whatever that you should have had from this job or whatever it is.
So
and that wouldn't cost a lot.
Government,
It's
state
probably
government
the
will do it.
cost of one fighter jet, honestly. So like I'm sure we could do fine with this. It's probably even less than that. I
But
guarantee you
who's
it's
the
less than that.
we?
I'm talking about
The
the government.
state
This
government?
this is a federal government thing. This would have to be a federal. If it's a federal plan, it would have to be to me a federal thing. And we're talking shit. I don't know, but like I think that
But
like
see, I'm appreciating what you're saying, but then I'm wondering how many more. I don't mean it in a negative way that
I know.
it can't be done, but how many other industries now, for a similar argument, have to be made?
Well, the only way I'm saying when you actively as a government say it's almost like an eminent domain thing where you're saying, look, we're killing this industry. It's not helping America anymore. It's not even helping the workers really because it gives them terrible health and it's dangerous and it's all this and there's no value as a society for this industry to exist in the long term. We can phase it out. It's already been naturally phasing out anyway. It just is. I mean, it's happening anyway. So this is a way to you could either say we're going to let this slowly die, or we're going to help these people now and then just move on, right? And and again, to me, that doesn't really happen until we've replaced it, and that's the infrastructure thing. And the other thing about this renewable energy side is you can decentralize a lot of the power sources, so that if one grid goes down, it's not like you're screwed. I mean. It was natural gas that was the biggest problem for Texas, and it was the coal that kept the natural gas from being delivered because you need to get it delivered, right? So the supply of natural gas that was supposed to be coming got shut down, but also some of the pipes were literally freezing where the natural gas is flowing through, however that is. So it wasn't set up for this kind of cold, like we said. There was frozen turbines as well, but it was mostly it was not the renewable resources weren't the problem for the power grid lossage in Texas. And so it's the building of this infrastructure has to be like a number one priority for our country for so many reasons. And it's and again, I think that what I was speaking to before is this inability to admit you're wrong, right? That I see on the Republican side is one of the biggest things that I think that holds us back. Is if they could just stop and say, you know what, we are wrong. This is a thing we need to fix on climate change. We need to do everything we can.
I think both. I think if this, I will say, in different ways, but both sides of the aisle, even though we need more than both sides of an aisle, but both sides of the aisle do that in different ways on different topics where they refuse to admit they're wrong. And if they would do that, it could help move things along. Like, in my opinion, this is a quick tangent.
Yeah,
but
let's hear it.
Al Franken should have never been made to give up his political seat.
Completely agree.
Never.
Absolutely never agreed.
No one will ever say that.
No, actually, I think Kirsten Gillibrand, who was one of the ones that really I couldn't stand her at the time.
She went after him.
She went after him, and she actually had expressed remorse about it. And there have been Democrats who've said that. I mean, because they're like, look, this is what the Republicans are getting away with and letting their people get away with. Al Franken was a valuable senator. He was a great speaker. He was funny, but he was also really smart. And
I'm happy to talk about the picture or people's behavior and or the comedy industry, all of that. But I do not believe that was worth him having to resign.
I don't believe it was either. I don't believe it was. Well, first of all,
I wanted to say no for the longest time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it was based on basically hearsay of somebody who said he brushed her butt when they took a picture. Okay, that might have happened, and if it did, he should be. There should be, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough when you have other shit going on that was 1,000 times worse, and they're getting away with it. And it was just like, why does Al Franken get this kind of a shaft? And the other thing, he never touched the woman. He took stupid pictures while she was sleeping as a comedian, not as a senator, right? As a comedian, and he's goofing off and blah blah blah. And it was inappropriate, all of that. But I mean,
happy to have that. Happy to have the conversation about appropriate behaviors and such. But within that appropriate behavior level, these actions, to me, I don't see how they warrant a person having to lose their job.
No, absolutely agreed. And yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway,
Well.
yeah, Al Franken. Wow. Like, you know what I remember about Al Franken was he had just come out with a book that was out
Oh,
there. It
really?
was called Monster of the Senate, and it was like a funny, like it was anecdotes of different things that were going on in the Senate. It literally came out like a month maybe before all this shit happened, or it was, and it was like,
Wow.
oh, I'm sorry, buddy, the timing of that doesn't work out. That
Wow.
didn't work out well for you, man. Yeah, I felt bad about him, man. I did. I always thought he was really good.
Yeah.
Um, but that like so again, the infrastructure side I think is it it's part of what could really get this country back going and in another way like it's like we could have more pride in this country again
Mm-hmm.
and to me that's where you could find some sense of unity is when that starts providing jobs and that means Republican and Democratic jobs because infrastructure in every state needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's when you'll start seeing people go, oh wow, this is actually something's happening here, this is going on,
True.
um
I don't know that I agree that that equals unity. It does equal people back to work. I don't know if it equals unity.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't want to say unity, but I mean, I guess the idea is more of a lessening of everything Democrat is stupid and everything Republican. Like whenever I see the posts on the corrupt and Democrats, I'm like, yeah, really though. Like I'm not saying they're not,
Both sides have their corruption.
but like one corruption pile of poo is way bigger than the other right now. All right.
Oh yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm
I'm not
saying?
saying that
It's
there
like
aren't
it's
things that are
not.
much more egregious, but
Yeah, you know,
exactly,
it's
exactly.
like if it stinks in the room and one person farted and the other person actually went. The person who went is like, yeah, but you farted too. So it's why it stink. You're just as responsible for the smell in this room as
You're
what I
just
have in my
as
pants.
responsible.
That's to me the
You
analogy
should get
right
that
now.
T-shirt.
There should you're equal, not just yet. You're equally as
You're
responsible.
equally as responsible. Wow. Well, on that note,
I know, I know. On that note, after educating you on my new
we
poo and
can
fart reference and analogy,
we can move on to schools.
we can move on to schools. So schools,
Yes,
you're very opinionated on this whole subject, and
I
I am too.
am.
Everybody is opinionated on the subject. I should say that, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
most people have an opinion. Schools are reopening, like
They're supposed to be in the next, I believe that was a goal of this administration that, at the end of the 100 days,
100
schools would be
days.
open.
Well, then there was a thing where it was only going to be one day, and then there was a thing where it was going to be, oh no, it's going to be 5 days. So I've heard that,
Well,
uh,
first of all, it's a misstatement to say schools are going to open. Many schools are open.
correct.
It's not as if every school is closed.
That's exactly right. That's
So
exactly
it
right.
kind of drives me crazy as a talking point.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but like I said, if they want to figure out something with high school that kids don't have to be back yet, and we can figure out how to do it remotely.
Yeah.
It's high school. We can make it work.
High school's
Elementary schools need to be open.
no, and I agree with that statement. Honestly, again, we've spoken on this, and if people listen to our past shows, if I brought up the school side, my daughter is doing remote learning, and she's actually excelling during it, and she's doing really well. And she actually doesn't want to go back to regular school, but she also is in a situation where the teacher's doing a fantastic job. Like it's. The system they've put together is really impressive in the way they've done it, and she just happens to be a kid who can do that. Not every kid can,
Mm-hmm.
and not every parent can be home while their kid is at school. And so, my opinion is very skewed because it hasn't been a bad situation for us or for her. But that said, kids in elementary school should absolutely be able to go back to school. The statistics are there. It's been proven, like the transmission from the kids is not very big. Yes, we should absolutely get those teachers vaccinated as soon as possible. I do think that that's necessary, but the numbers have so far shown that the kids aren't transmitting it, the school transmissions aren't happening. What they're happening for like indoor sports events, like there was a wrestling team that got it, and so like that's what I looked at. When I saw it, it was like the things that are happening are like indoor events where it's like community events, but like the actual school in the classroom setting, the kids are able to do the masks, they're able to do the distancing for the most part, or they can get it, and it hasn't been transmitted. High school is the problem, like you said, and I can't
No,
speak
but to
towards that.
me, high school isn't. So I'm also going to say that I just saw in the comments section that someone said I was hard to hear. So
Are
I
you?
don't, something may have just happened to my microphone. I'm not
Oh well,
sure, but hopefully someone will let me know.
yeah. I
Um,
just raised his volume a little bit. Tell me if that helps out everybody.
the high school to me, when I say it's not a problem, I mean it is easier to make that virtual.
Yes,
They are
correct,
older, they
correct.
can move through the process, and some junior high school, I guess. But little kids need to be in school,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yeah.
notion that I mean, if people want to keep their kids home, that's their call if they're able to do that. But many people cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
not even. We have a country that's people go to work
Mm-hmm.
based on the notion that their child, who is school aged, will be in school anywhere between as early as 7 a.m. and as late as like 8 p.m. in some places.
Mm-hmm.
So to just have these closed just makes no sense to me. We have to figure out, but the problem to opening them, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
all stems from the way the COVID experience was introduced. It was introduced to the public um, almost as if it was a terrorist attack.
Right. Right. Well,
Like that's the level of fear that it was put into people, and now they want people to go back, but they're talking about it as if they didn't previously tell them it was a terrorist attack.
yeah. I mean, I agree with that statement. I think that, but I can't. You can't blame how they reacted to it earlier. You know, it when you have something like an ongoing a pandemic that just comes in like that, you don't know how bad it. They didn't know what the death rate was going to be. They didn't know all those things at first. I mean, it was too new to understand it. So there was this like panic thing. What I'm worried about more, honestly, from that is that people will never buy that type of scare again. Like imagine we have a because they're you know they're saying now, and I just saw more pandemics are coming. There it's almost this scary inevitability. Now, could they be smaller or less deadly than this? Absolutely. Could they be more deadly than this? They could, and that's one of the things that uh that could be a problem is the next pandemic could be more deadly, but everyone's gonna be like, "Yeah, you cried wolf. It wasn't as bad as it was," you know.
But
And
that is what happened, and
Mhm.
I I do actually look forward to a point in the future when there's more willingness, I will say, in culture around the conversation.
Mhm.
But that is what literally happened. It was over. I don't know whether to say overblown or oversold, but it was one of those two things.
Well, I think it was. No, I don't think it was oversold. I think it was. I think it again. I think it was. It was. You could say it was oversold in the sense that they said, "Wait, this. You know, we have to shut everything down completely because this thing is horrible and blah 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 blah." Right. And it wasn't as bad, but at the same point, I mean, it's pretty freaking
It wasn't
deadly.
anywhere near as bad. Not that it wasn't as bad.
With
It
shutting
wasn't.
things down, we're nearing 500,000 people dead from this. I mean,
I
that's
comprehend that, but the
that's
way they talked about this time, well, not this time last year, but we're
mhm,
almost at a year's point.
yeah.
So almost at this time last year,
Hmm.
the way this was talked about,
Hmm.
we should all be dead, all of us.
Well,
That is literally
yeah.
how it was talked about.
I
That's
think
crazy.
well, I mean, the whole washing, like we had to wash and sanitize boxes and shit, like everything. Like there was a lot of. It felt now like if you look back at it, you're like, yeah, it's like hiding under the desk during a nuclear war, though. It was like really going to help me in
That's exactly what happened.
um,
That's
but what happens if it is really that bad now? Do you think nobody's going to believe it? Do you think if there's another pandemic that's really deadly, like 50% death rate or whatever, 20-30% death rate, that's horrible. Like, would people believe it?
I think people will be skeptical. Yeah,
Hmm.
I do. And I think that it's, like with the school thing, especially, it's all not, to make this a Trump conversation, but it's all because
Please
of the
don't.
fact that there was no plan,
Well,
right?
yes, that's really what it comes down to. Is there was no plan, and
Yeah.
there was a
If
trust
there were a
issue.
plan for this,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
then all states could have moved together, all schools could have been doing the same things.
yeah.
And so now you have teachers, first of all, this notion that they're just painting teachers as lazy and they don't want to work and don't want to go back to school. I
Crazy.
absolutely abhor that.
Isn't
I
that
don't think all
insane?
teachers are perfect. I had good teachers and horrible teachers.
I just don't
But
understand
I
why
have
it's okay to bash teachers, but we can't criticize cops. Like, I'm like,
well, we'll
Yeah.
have to do that on another
I
episode.
know
'Cause
we will.
I was talking to someone about that the other day, that notion that they are police, the only, and maybe the military, the only profession that you're not allowed to criticize.
Yeah, no,
You can criticize everybody else, but you can't say anything about the police.
so yeah, and I believe you could absolutely criticize the police before you can criticize the military, unless they're not following orders. Like, to me, if you're in the military and you're following orders, I can't criticize you. You're doing your job. I can criticize the person giving the orders. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like in the police, though, like they kind of are autonomous while they're out there in a sense, right? I mean, like, I know they have the
Yeah.
cameras and everything, but like they get to act independently without orders telling them this is exactly how you must operate,
Right.
with this situation. So it is a different animal to me. I don't find it like, but yeah, if you're a military guy who goes against the orders and does things you're not supposed to do, yeah, then you get to be criticized.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way I look at that. But yeah, there is this notion that like you can bash teachers all day long, but you can't touch cops.
And this is that teachers don't want to. I know teachers. My sister's a teacher. I have teachers in my family. This isn't that people don't want to go to work. Most people are, first of all, not enjoying the experience of having to teach
no,
virtually.
this is
Right?
not. It's not a fun thing for most of these teachers. You're absolutely right.
Right.
Hmm.
They're not doing this right for the fun of it.
Yeah.
They've told people that there's this thing that's killing every single person who gets it. So now people are going to be afraid to go back into the classroom, but then they're telling people, but the kids don't seem to have it. Oh, but the kids may transmit it. And again, not that I do not believe that COVID is real. I 100% believe it's real. I don't think it's a hoax.
That's
But I
good.
still think there's a lot of things they're not answering. I still don't understand why does it not present itself in children? And why is that not a thing that, do adults not possess something that children have, or do children have something that we lose as we get older? There's been no explanation of it, just a statement that this is what happened. So you have people who are fearful there's going to be the children in the building spreading this thing that's unknown, and people are trying to figure out how to put up partitions and rooms. And I've been working in schools for almost the totality of this whole COVID time.
I know you have.
There are no partitions. None.
Right.
Can you remind kids to stay 6 feet apart? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Will a group of 6 or 7-year-olds do that? No. You can keep reminding them, but it's in your nature at that age to play among your friends.
Right.
If you're in junior high school, when your hormones are raging, you are not staying 6 feet apart from the
Correct.
object of your affection. I'll
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can be as mindful as possible, but this notion of every school is going to have the partitions between students' desks and everyone's going to have on masks and gloves and glasses, and I'm in buildings constantly, and I don't see any of that, and everyone's doing okay.
Well, and interestingly, I'd love to know what this. I think it's 150, 160 billion dollars that they want to do towards schools,
Hmm.
for helping them reopen. I'm curious as to what that money's going to. Is it going to these partitions and this stuff? Like, is that where it's going? If it's going to updating ventilation systems, which I've heard that that's one of the things. Well, that's probably an infrastructure thing that needs to happen anyway, and I get that because, like, I mean, I just remember school like. My school didn't have air conditioning, didn't have anything, and it was just
Yeah,
like
they're old
they're old.
buildings.
Yeah. So like if you're updating infrastructure, great if that's what you're doing. But if you're just buying a bunch of plastic partitions, I actually agree. This is like a small thing that like you is probably not going to make or break the whole situation, right?
It's
Um,
not.
and so that's where I do have problems with sometimes. Like to me, I do think right now that like there should almost be a blank check that we can write in as a government. We already have very little interest rate. It's basically zero interest rate for borrowing the money. So like this is the time that we are set to be able to spend money as a government. So I'm not against like, hey, let's put some money at a lot of these problems. But sometimes you're like, okay, well, does that really need to go there? You know, I mean, like I get infrastructure, I get power and all that. So I'd be interested in seeing. We'll have to look at this and find out what the 150 billion is because I did see that number, 160, I think it was.
I
Um,
feel like a lot of it is going to be this notion of, I mean, I see the images on various news programs, whatever, of schools and all the partitions that has not existed in any school that I've been in, right? Are there people who have had COVID? Yes. Are there people who have died? Yes.
yeah.
Not at any of the schools I've worked at, but the places that I'm aware of, right? I'm not pretending that this is not a thing that there are people who die from, but I
Hmm.
will not buy into this notion that they're selling that
Hmm.
this is a thing that's murdering every single person who gets it,
Yeah.
therefore making people afraid to do anything at all. And you have these kids who are losing out on a very specific early childhood age
Right.
brain space that you cannot replicate later.
Yeah.
So it frustrates me.
No, I get it, and I get it, and I agree. And on again, like these, like kindergarten through what fifth, sixth grade, I think we're fairly safe on these for the transmission. Um,
That's what they say.
so that's also the age where you can't like leave your kid unattended at home. You know, there's again, depending your kid, right? I mean, you can go all the way up till senior year and be like, there's no way I'm leaving that kid at home alone. But in the high school age, you could go back to work usually because that kid can be maintained in school on the computer as long as they're reasonably well behaved, right? And
Right.
honestly, if that's their only social outlet to see the kids that they get to see, then great. So that's kind of the hope, right? But from K through six, preschool through sixth, that's those parents. They probably there's a lot more people that could get back to work
Yeah.
if that was allowable. So
I
I
think
think that
you
should be
know,
happening as
stay
soon as
home,
possible.
like, homeschool your kid. We don't have a country full of people who are most households with children um, are, you know, yes, there are single family homes, but households with two adults, working age adults, both adults are usually working. So
Exactly.
they are not home to
Exactly.
be there with the kid while they're on the computer. So the way it was like rolled out with these expectations were, and we've said this before, they were classist, they were sexist, they're outdated, they're based in the belief that of course the kid can stay home because mom's at home.
Yeah.
So mom will be with the kid.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2021, so mom's at work, although her job may be shut down at the moment, but she's looking for a job
Mm-hmm.
to go back out into society. Then what is she going to do then?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
And
get.
we have schools where there are kids who have not been um, logging on to classes for whatever the reason
Yeah,
may be. Junior
that's
high.
well, and again, that is an issue, right? So that does that mean that the parent did leave them alone and they're not managing their school work by themselves, so they do need somebody to watch over them. What's going on there, right? Or
Well,
they
there's that, but we also need a system that is working to figure out how to get those students online as opposed to a
Mhm.
system, at least the way it plays out somewhat in New York, where you are penalizing or arresting or filing a complaint against families for kids not logging in.
Wow.
There are a gazillion reasons. They may not have a computer. The person who lives at home may not understand technology. Their parent or family may not speak the language. There was no rollout for
Wow.
this. It's just like, let's do it.
Have we talked about the kids with the guns on Zoom in classrooms? Did we talk about that before?
I feel like I don't know if we talked about it on the air
I
or
don't
not.
think we did, but
I remember you mentioning
remember, so it did for some reason just reminding this. And this is just a little bitty tangent, but it's still on the school thing and problems you can have from school because of online learning if it's done this way, where a kid was decided to show a plastic gun that was obviously a toy. It was like orange or whatever, for like a show and tell or something in class, and like the teacher like got him suspended.
Yeah.
Because it was a violation of school policy to have
But he wasn't in school, or was
exactly with Z, right? But he wasn't. He was at home, and he's a kid. And the whole idea of the no guns at school policy is obviously not because like of an orange toy gun. It's because you can't bring a gun into school. That's it. Like you don't want to, that's it.
Toy gun on a computer.
On a computer. Correct. And like and it's like, and there's other instances, y'all can look it up, of people who have like teachers who have reported kids for things that are on in their background of their Zoom call. That's literally not like something to have a fault of. You know what I mean? And
This
that's
whole-
see, that's taking it to the other level, right? That's where the left, that's perfect fodder for like the the anti-liberal like sentiment. See, look how crazy these liberals are. They're policing people in their homes and stuff, and depending,
I mean,
no
there
matter what,
is
it's just
there is a like if you see someone like murdering someone or molesting someone, sure,
of
I
course,
believe you
of
can
course,
make a complaint.
but a
If
plastic,
you see,
yeah.
what was it? The gun was in the background or in
No,
the
he
kid's-
had it in his hand. He was showing the kids, like, look, I got a gun. And it was like, whatever it was, it's like he's got a gun, and it's a plastic gun, and it was a toy. It was obviously a toy gun. And he was just a kid doing something he didn't know. I think he was like 5 years old or something. It was
Yeah, see,
ridiculous.
no,
It's just like,
I don't. And he was black, right? He had to be. I know nothing about this story, but I am convinced he had to be black
he was black.
or Latino.
He was black.
Mm-hmm.
He was brown. I couldn't, like, I don't know more than that, but he was not white.
See, and that's the kind of,
Yeah.
there are so many layers to this moment of school being online and
Hmm.
virtual access and the privacy of people's homes and so forth and so on, that I do believe they can be worked through, right? I'm not a
Right.
fatalist. Yet at the same time, there was no acknowledgement when this all rolled out of, well, let's try to create a plan for it alongside of us just rolling it out. So don't just give out computers so everyone has one, but also have another team of people trying to look 3 months down the line to develop a best practices plan to
Mhm.
let families know this, or try to have your child at X, Y, and Z place or away from the team. No one's did any of this before,
Yeah.
but they're punishing families and children
Hmm.
for
Mhm.
not doing it right.
Sure.
But there's no right way to do it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that there's I'm a silver lining kind of guy most of the time, right? I do think that there is a potential silver lining out of this, getting this system of homeschooling, doing this remote thing, where in times of necessity, school can go on. You know what I mean? Like if we have some kind of this is our backup generator, so to speak, right? It's like I'm not saying it's perfect, but like snow days, for example, and this sucks, right? This could ruin snow days forever for kids because instead of
Oh, it
snow
already
days,
happened.
right?
We don't
Instead
have
of snow days, it's just like, well, here. First of all, we're not gonna have a lot of snow days anymore because of climate change. Everybody, just be clear. If we do, with just ice
We
days
have
like
them.
this, we'll have them. We'll have them.
We have them right here. Supposed to have another one tomorrow.
But the school year will actually be shorter because of that, because everybody thinks they get a day off for snow days, but there's a cushion that's created on school days, and you have extra days at the end. At least in the East Coast, there was. I mean, we used to have like extra days, and
Yeah.
and
Well,
and
but those are also going to go away because they can't. There's been so much missed learning. They
Mm.
can't have. They need to get every opportunity for academic enrichment that they can
mm.
right now.
So, do you think we're going to start seeing more summer school happening?
I think come this, yes, this summer into next school year,
Mhm.
summer school, tutoring like crazy,
Mhm.
along with the emotional, social emotional guidance counselors, therapists, like social workers. There's going to be a lot needed to thrust you kids back into a sense of normalcy around all of this.
You think so?
I do.
Well, I mean, it depends, right? If the education was lost during the year, like you're saying, for those kids, they are going to need that. You're absolutely right. But is it possible that they could just? I don't know. Kids are so resilient. I feel like 1 year is okay. I think going into the next year, they can slide in as long if they can get back to school fully in the fall of this next year, and hopefully sooner. But like fall,
But they will have been out of school for almost a year and a half, almost 2 years if you add the impact that the summer times have on the experience.
well, it'll be a year this month coming up for my daughter, where she hasn't been back in her school. Yeah,
Mhm.
this next month, right? Because it was like right
Yeah,
in
March
March.
13th is when they
I think that's when we
closed
did
all
it.
the schools.
Yeah, I think that was right around it, right, mid-March.
And
And
they
so
are resilient. You're resilient as a young person. I understand that. But I do feel like there are a lot of adults who are making decisions about children right now who are doing it with a I don't know, with a laissez-faire attitude regarding the whole experience. So they'll be fine. They'll get over it.
mm,
None of us can relate. There's no experience in any of our lives
hmm
to having your childhood educational experience completely, for some people, stopped.
right.
Like
Yes.
all of us, those of us who are, you and I having a conversation right now, people who are typing or writing or communicating with people, those are all things that our brains learn to comprehend when we're 5 and
Mhm.
6 years old.
hmm
To suddenly take a group of 5 and 6 year olds, rip away that learning experience, and then throw them back into school is going to take a large amount of work to repair that I don't think people are being realistic about.
We're gonna have to revisit this conversation. I think sometime in the fall. Like we're gonna have to,
Yeah,
really. I mean, we're
you're
gonna have
back
to like,
open.
what has been the impact? Have we been able to see the impact of this? And
I mean, there are people who are already seeing the
mhm,
impact just by an awareness that there are kids who across the country still to this moment don't have appropriate technology to this moment. So
To
that
this
means that there are
moment.
some kids who are a year into this now
no
who have
internet.
completely lost their
hmm
first grade, third grade, fifth grade, sixth grade experience.
Yeah, where they have to go to a coffee shop or whatever to get your internet connection.
Yes,
hmm
yes,
hmm
or the hotspot on their phone or something.
hmm
So yes, we
Crazy.
will continue this definitely. Yes.
We're gonna have to. We're gonna have to.
But what was something else that you said before? Because as we close out, I want us to have that conversation about that. You said something before, like we need to do a show.
On.
I'm gonna have to go
I
back.
said
and
that
look.
today.
Yeah,
Ah,
something
that
you
was
just
like
said a
so
few
10
minutes
minutes ago. I don't know. It could have just. We have to do a show
Ugh,
on.
go back.
Was it in relation to the schools?
I think it was
Mm.
right before that. It'll come back. I'll rewind it. But yeah,
Oh, so it was during the
future episode.
infrastructure conversation.
Future episode, definitely.
Infrastructure conversation. Well, dude, this is fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Talking infrastructure in schools. Um, and I want everybody to stay tuned for. We're going to be starting to have updates on doing a new show called Higher Conversations, where we're going to have thought leaders in the cannabis industry sit down and talk with me about new technologies, and we'll be kind of mixing and matching between some gray matter and higher conversations. So we'll be putting announcements out that in the coming weeks, and also about the THC Championship. We are going to be doing a 2021 THC Championship. We don't know how it's going to look yet, but it'll be awesome. And I think that's it for my shameless self-promotion. Rob has a great show for his shameless self-promotion and called Taking You Back with the amazing, talented Miss Jen Waring. Oh, my God.
TakingYouBack.com. Check it out.
Yeah, you should put a post in the comment there. TakingYouBack.com. Wait, what is it? It's taking you.
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, you are? Okay, there you got it. TakingYouBack.com. So this is cool. What do you guys got coming up? What's your next show?
Right now, we're just revisiting some of our previous episodes. So we're highlighting some YouTube people to check out.
There it is. So
we're in 2003 this week.
Yeah. So if you, you're doing 2003. Nice. So as a Generation Xer, being of the same age as you two, the show is always right up my alley. Like sometimes, you guys ever watch Family Guy and you go, that show was for me because I know every reference in that show. And like, so getting to listen to your podcast with you and Jen and Taking You Back is a lot like that. Like you'll play excerpts of songs and television shows, and you will talk about what was going on at the time. And you guys like have you have it down. Like you guys seriously have some info. I mean, like I don't know if you did the research or you just knew it, but like.
Music, film, price of gas. We know we do it.
Yeah, I know they do, and so they'll take you back to that year and like what happened in that year and what it was like. It's a fun show, guys, and like I'll be like I would listen to you guys with my headphones on, and I'm like, it's like I'm talking to you, like I feel like I'm on your show, and I'm like, where's my mic? And I'm like, well, it's probably a good thing because I would just probably talk and screw the show up and like and not shut up. So, and you two are hilarious together. Jen is so funny, and it's always fun to hear her voice. Another great talent from Syracuse University Drama Department.
From Syracuse.
Up in
the cold.
That's right. Yeah, speaking of the cold.
Yeah.
Winter.
Yeah, they're used to it.
They are. I remember the winter, I want to say it was the winter of 93 that we had a blizzard or something.
94.
94 was 94. It was that 93 was the fall.
Yep.
Yeah, that year. Yeah. Ooh, that was a rough one, man. That was rough.
Yes, it was.
Crazy.
I remember it. 6 feet of snow.
6 feet of snow. 6 feet. It's crazy. Syracuse.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. All right, man. That was a great show. That was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging in there. Mr. Roblard from Moon.
Yes.
Who's
that, Jason, right?
Moon Dragon Hemp. Sorry. I know. I just like stoner blanked out for a second. That was terrible.
That's wrong.
He's selling there's some great deals. He did put in a post. Go ahead and check the link and just mention us. If you are a consumer of smokable hemp, they do have a fantastic deal. They can ship anywhere in the country legally, and so you should take advantage of that link up there for Moon Dragon Hemp. And help out my friend's small business here in Colorado. He's a great guy, and he is a co-founder of the Hemp Connoisseur magazine. No longer an owner, but was a co-founder with me, and still a great friend, man. And so please support Jason, and by supporting him, you support us. So it's all good. That's it. I just want to thank all of our guests. All of our people commenting and hanging out with us today, and Senor Rob, thank you very much. A lot of fun today. Fun conversation.
Good to see you.
All right, let's play some music, and until next time,
peace,
love and hempiness. Good night, everybody.